Tradition is not the worship of ashes. It is the preservation of fire. Never has this been more true than it is today for the West. All the perils, all the adversities that we face, the barbarians literally at the gates and even inside, as we struggle to retain some semblance of tradition. Not the worship of ashes, but the preservation of fire. That fire that dwells within each and every one of us, and that fire that gets lit when there is a conflict of civilizations. For years, decades even now, the British people have tolerated grooming gangs made up entirely, and when I say entirely, I mean absolutely without exception, of foreigners. Migrants, they are called. Refugees, as they are sold to us. Now, their clientele includes some high-ranking British white boys, let's make no illusion about that, but the people who are at the source of providing the trafficked children, let me say again, children are made up exclusively of people who are culturally incompatible with the West, culturally incompatible with the United Kingdom, and have, by any definition, zero right to be present there in the first place. The British are a tolerant people. We've all read The Wrath of the Awakened Saxon, haven't we? It did not come quickly, and it will not swiftly abate. But just a few weeks ago, it went a little too far over the line. This sweet little choir boy, this sweet little Welsh choir boy, as we were sold. I'll let you do your own Google homework to find a picture of how he looked when he presented himself in the courtroom. But let's just say he'd have still been in his quiet little schoolboy prime when he did what he did. What did he do? Whatever could you be talking about? He walked in to a child's birthday party and stabbed 3 innocent little girls. Even if he'd have looked like that, this miscreant has to go. But see, when he did it, this picture was taken when he was roughly 9. The crime was committed at the age of 17, and I promise you, just like so many American cases before him, he looked nothing like this sweet little innocent presentation. He stabbed 3 girls to death, and then, in response, the refugee community assured their assimilation and comforted the British people by committing 17 stabbings over the course of 3 days. 17 stabbings over the course of 3 days. That was the reassurance. They had had enough. The British people had had more than enough, and they took to the streets. As well they should have. If anything, this was long overdue to say that we are Britons. We are the essence of the West. You don't belong here in the first place, and the only thing you have to say for our graciousness is thank you, and then go on about your business. But no, that's not enough. It's never-ending demands, and now, you're grooming our kids and stabbing them to death. Enough is enough. And the British Prime Minister, in the tradition of Churchill, cracked down on the British people. What we are about to witness in the UK is a concerted clampdown on legal but harmful speech. Opinions the elite don't like, political parties like Reform, and media like GB News and X. Sorry, but no, this is Britain, not North Korea. We must resist. Nothing could be more true, because without speech, there is no way to convey the ideas that are the basis of the culture that you wish to defend. But while Muslim gangs run roughshod in the streets, waving swords around, while British police dance with Pakistani migrants and refugees, some of the same ones who are stabbing British children to death, the impetus remains on cracking down on the British people and particularly their speech. Now, we look on at this in horror, but how is this any different in any real, tangible way from what we've seen recently? Crack down on anti-Semitism and Israel criticism. I am no friend of Hamas. This is well known, and I am no friend of the Zionists. But when you eliminate the possibility of speech, you have already subverted the deepest, most important tradition of the West. And they did it in the UK, and they're doing it here, and they're doing it on both political sides. All the while, the barbarians are at the gates. These people remain a threat to us culturally. The borders remain wide open, and the regime, no matter who will be leading it, and we'll get to that in a second, still remains compromised to a Chinese Communist Party. And the one thing that we are lacking is solidarity. What do we pray for? We pray for that lack of solidarity. We pray for that confusion to be sown among our enemies. Psalm 55, verse 9, destroy, O Lord, and divide their tongues, for I have seen violence and strife in the city. We are seeing violence and strife in the cities of the West. And while we pray for the Lord to divide their tongues, we have got to speak together as one. What's going on here in the United States? A palace coup in our very midst? Yeah, this picture's a reminder of much happier times between the two of them. You see, Biden was kind enough to pick her as a running mate because she ticked all the boxes despite being woefully unqualified. And she has hung back throughout this term, being groomed, being inculcated, being indoctrinated. And while this crowd told us that Joe was sharp as a tack, and this crowd insisted that anything against the existing administration was merely a deep fake and a cheap fake and manipulation in social media of conspiracy theories by an extreme right wing, it finally became too much for them after the debate, and they swapped in the cackling whore. Now this Jezebel is at the front of the ticket, and as a testament to the power of the propaganda machine, this crew, they have turned her from the lowest approval rating of any vice president in United States history to the new mulatto messiah virtually overnight. And we're expected to believe it, and many of you out there do. I've got a few words for you later on this evening. But for right now, let's continue, shall we? I fear nothing. In spite of the barbarians being at the gate, in spite of the compromise to a communist regime of our very leaders, these people that we count on as our figureheads and representatives to the regime, I fear nothing. Because the boss man's already given me the good word. Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16, verse 18, I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. You don't think we're looking at evil? You don't think that it is anything less than evil that is battering at the doors of the West even as we speak? Then damn you for a delusional fool. But another thing happened while I was gone. Another thing happened the day that I left. And it was everything in me not to address it then. The carpenter spoke to me and said, this is not your show. Stand down. But I got to revisit a horrible little memory from childhood. I was in 6th grade the last time somebody made an attempt on a president's life. Comparison contrasts aside, the real boots on the ground, the ones with balls and spines, acted as quickly as they could to get this man under wraps. I'm not going to waste a lot of time with conspiracy theories. We'll get into it later today about what we know versus what we're going to do about it. But I got to witness with my own eyes something that will turn to be, over the dark decades of history, one of the most iconic photos ever taken by an American journalist. A portrait in courage, and you can say whatever the hell you want about the man. This man just came centimeters from a fatal headshot and stood up strong, like the showman he is, certainly. But how many of you would have had the courage to take a near-miss shot like that and stand and tell your followers to fight? Nobody's going to tell this man to do anything that he doesn't want to do. The open mic was the best part of it. Let me get my shoes on, son. But this photo this personifies everything that is right and good about people who are built to lead in the West. This photo personifies everything that is right and good about masculine, testosterone-driven behavior, and I don't care how you feel about the man. In the same way that if you look to the top right corner, that banner, I don't care how you feel about the banner. I don't care how you feel about the man. It's what these things represent that should be important to us. It is what these things represent that should steel our spines and let our balls drop for the fight ahead, especially with the barbarians at the gate and the barbarians inside the gate trying to undermine us from within. Do I have concerns? Bet your ass I do. Do I have fear? Not a bit. Boss man's got the plan and the carpenter's got my back. Ezekiel chapter 6 verse 13. And this is an admonition to all of those people who think to ridicule, all of those people who think to minimize, all of these people who think this is all just a big freaking joke, who don't realize the enormity of what we are facing or the strength of spirit that will carry us through. From Ezekiel chapter 6, verse 13. When it's all over with, boys and girls, I want you to remember. Then shall ye know that I am the Lord. When their slain men shall be among their idols, around their altars, upon every high hill, in all the tops of the mountains, and under every green tree, and under every thick oak, the place where they did offer sweet savor to all their idols. Let them waste their time with the worship of idols, while we stand in faith, spirit, and principle for all that is good and righteous that remains in this world. Enjoy your moment, maggots. Revel in it, because your day is soon at hand, and I will see you across the barricades. For those who wish to stand with me and stand with what is right and stand with what is righteous and stand with what is good in the world, to stand with strength, to stand in the light of truth and the truth of light, welcome. I embrace you as a brother, and I look forward to the struggle ahead. Side by side, chin down, knuckles up, we are going to take this thing. I've never been more confident of anything in my life. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors. And while I am just in between, certainly not employers for you docs happy Antifa maggots out there. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions, particularly in the UK right now, if tweeted or exercised on any social media platforms. So please consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind, and they are guaranteed to choke you with a swollen, turgid, dose of truth cock, the likes of which even Kamala's gag reflex is not capable of getting around. Boys and girls, welcome back after a long hiatus. It is time once again for the Sunday sermon. Been a minute, fellas. I love y'all. I got to follow directions too. Let's see who's in. Everybody in for the drum roll. Where's the fire people? Come on, come on. Coming hard, charging out of the starting gate as we always do. You can see by the surroundings that we are back in the Barth Bunker, Spokane, Washington. Good to be home, if only for a minute, man. I am happy to be here. Coming charging out of the starting gate as we always do. The bumper music from the gut-stomping rock and roll band Red Desert out of the smoldering ruins and embers of the once great American city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. The name of the band is Red Desert. The name of the track is Older No Wiser. Every week I get a little bit older. Every week you guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. Let's roll the dice on this one and see how it goes, man. Quick little roll call to see who's been waiting around. I appreciate y'all's patience. Brother Clem, I love you so much, man. Thank you for all the text messages while I was out on the road. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the brotherhood, man. You mean the world to me, bro. And I cannot wait to have that sit-down conversation about how your French brethren somehow got shucked and jived out of what seemed an obvious victory for Le Pen and a conservative majority. I don't know how it all works, man, but I'm looking forward to the conversation. The original sinner sister herself, the divine Miss Emmy, happy to have you on board. Brother Dennis, OG, Reverend's Ranger and Prophet of Doom, and of course, where would we be without Roman? Roman and his lovely wife Carrie out there from opiumtales.com. Happy to see you guys on board. Everybody showing up early. Let me scroll through, man. I know I'm missing some folks here. Brother Bill, miss you, man. Miss you like you wouldn't believe. Looking forward to seeing you in September. Putting plans in the works right now for that very end. Mark, I missed you just as much as you guys missed me. I appreciate that message, man. Kind of relit my fire a little bit to know that you guys have been sitting out there on the porch and missing me. I love y'all, man. God bless you. Thank you so much for your support, everybody here. Look at this, the mighty, mighty Bones. Saya Bones. Always here, just don't always comment or speak up. Brother, it's cool. There's nothing mandatory, even to say that you have to be here, let alone speak up or respond or anything, because I know you're out there, Bone. I know you're solid, and you have been for me for a very, very long time. Chief, you have no idea how much I miss you, man. I would love to talk to you about the weekend in Vegas and how things went with that. I left you a voicemail message. Don't know if you got it or not. I've been working 7/12s on that shutdown and just getting home, but we need to touch base, brother. It has been far, far too long. And in September, I will be in your part of the world. So maybe we hit up that little Denny's again. Considering everything else might be closed or understaffed, I don't care, man. If we got to sit in a McDonald's and enjoy a coffee together, it's just been too damn long, brother. God bless you, and I miss you very much. Speaking of brothers in Christ that I miss, man, Doug, love you so much, man. Every conversation that we have, and that moment that I spent in prayer, man, you mean the world to me, brother. And we are connected. We have just an unbreakable connection because of the way that we came together, man. And God bless you, man. God bless you. Hopefully, this will bring you some strength. Hopefully, you'll get the message out of this that you need. Brother Shin, how you doing, man? I actually did get your chat message, and now we're doing the tag thing because you had been meaning to call me back, and I've been meaning to call you. So I think I just got to scroll through all of the Bratva guys and just go one by one, and just make sure to touch base with everybody. The mighty, mighty Stone on board. Good to see you, brother Ryan, man. Brother Ryan, Danzig. Oh, Danzig, not dancing. Yeah, right on. I got you. It's funny, man. Autofill does some strange things. I tried to enter the word underwear, and it autofilled it to Untermenschen, which should let you know what's going on Planet Bart, whatever. Danzig can tell you if you will not. Brother Johnny, man, hey, I gotta say this, man. John. And John, I'm not trying to put you out here on Front Street, brother, but yeah, I'm going to put you out here on Front Street a little bit. Johnny is the last surviving witness to a lot of my best stories. The man has literally seen me dead on more than one occasion. Uh, and recently, he came back to the cross. He came back to the faith. He came back to the Lord. And today, Brother John went to church. He found himself a church that he was comfortable with, and the first time attending church in forever and ever and ever. And I'm really proud of him, man. I'm really proud of him. We have waded through the spiritual and the narcotic muck together. Um, and it's always good to see another victory for the kingdom. Another denizen, formerly of the Northwest. He's down here in Nicaragua right now, which, you know, man, I need to come down there and do some diving. I really do, bro. There's a whole lot of things I need to catch up on, Kirk, but it would be great to get down to Nicaragua and see you. And the Northwest misses you, man. I want to point that out, too. Brother Phil Lewis, watching from Tyler, Texas, just down the road from a couple of my other good folks down there. So yeah, man, I think we covered everybody. Wayne, brother, you made it. How is your brother doing, man? I haven't heard from Larry in a hot minute, man. I hope that he's doing well. Appreciate it, guys. Appreciate every single one of y'all for being here. If you haven't checked out the doc, Fall of Minneapolis, do it. I think that's a good recommendation, Em, and I'm going to be on that. Do me a favor, message that to my inbox so I don't forget, because, you know, with everything that's going on right now, what actually happened to the city of Minneapolis, you know, speaking of my band here with the bumper music, Red Desert, what happened to that city? And I don't know if you guys ever got a chance to go to Minneapolis before the Fentanyl Floyd riots, but man, what a beautiful town, man. What a beautiful town, and very well laid out, and really, really cool. In fact, Johnny and I had a couple of adventures in Minneapolis back in the day. We don't need to get into it, bro. We don't need to get into it because going to take away from some of the subject matter, but we'll tell all those stories. Brett, I'm glad you made it, man. I'm here. Sorry I'm late. Kid had some fishing line. Brother, don't even worry about it. Punctuality is for me, and usually I fail, so don't even sweat that. You know, I'm just happy to have you guys. Even if you guys can't make it out for the live one, man, if you're just watching the replay, it means the world, man. You know, every follow that I get, every bit of support that I get from you guys, you know, it renews the fire. It renews the fire, man. I mean, like, I have faith in the plan, and I have faith in my calling, and I have faith in my anointing. But I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that as a human, sometimes I don't go, man, you know, am I really living up to what I should? And then I see you guys and I see you respond, and it's like, yeah, we're still on the right path. And of course, one last guy for the roll call, JT, man. John, Tim. Me and John are the last of the old school Grady Park hooligans, man. Filipino martial arts, Houston Stick Fighting Association. No greater love hath a man that he would beat his good friend in the skull with a stick, I think is that the proverb? No, it's lay down his, I don't know, I forget. I forget because John hit me so many times in the head with that damn stick. So good to have you on board, man. Good to have you on board. Fear God. Let me see here. Fear God, not the government. That's what we're sporting today. And that's the vibe. That's always the vibe. But remember, fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, but think about the actual definition and context of the word fear, right? Fear. Sonny and I discussed this. When I had him on an interview a couple of months back, we were discussing this, that fear isn't that, oh my God, I'm afraid of it kind of fear. It's reverential awe. When you stand in something that you're just awestruck, that reverential awe, that kind of fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, man. When you stand in sheer wonder at the unfathomable complexity of the divine plan and our tiny little place in it, and you were just awestruck, and you were so happy. You were so happy and blissed out to have some little small part in it. When you think about how complex it is, it's a fantastic thing. Brother Chris Garner, speaking of stick fighting, yeah, man, we need to get together and smack each other around a little bit. Ironically, I'm wearing, what is that? Who would Jesus bomb shirt? Gaza, apparently. Um, too soon? Anyway. Chris, man, I found an FMA guy um, over in Coeur d'Alene. And apparently he's like in a Santo pedigree. So I will be getting in touch with him. I think we're supposed to have coffee on Tuesday, and then I'll be getting back in touch with you. And those limited amounts of time that I'm here in town, we can actually get some privates in and get some drills together. And that way you and I can more effectively train and smack each other around with sticks, in my limited visits. Anyway, thank every one of y'all for being here. I know it's been 4 weeks, and I know you're like, hey, dude, just get on with it. You made us wait a long time, and I totally get that. A couple of sponsor shout-outs I got to get out of the way real quick. Of course, Brother Roman and his lovely wife, Carrie, and Roxy and Allie and Bevy, beautiful women over at opiumtales.com. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people. He is doing some phenomenal watercolors of some beautiful women, and the site is overwhelmed with testosterone-driven commentary as well. So you have artwork, you have beautiful naked women, and you have testosterone-driven commentary on Planet Bart. We call that a trifecta. Trifecta, that's my college word. I got like 3 of those. Anyway, Roman is also one of my oldest and dearest friends, man. We go all the way back to 1988, and his support for me, not just for the program, but on a personal level, encouraging me to get out here and start doing these damn sermons in the first place, man. So I hope that, Roman, I hope that you're aware that all of the pushing that you did in your subtle, understated way to drive me to actually step up and embrace my gift, man, it had a lot to do with everything that has followed, and I appreciate that. So, Roman, opiumtales.com, got to check him out. Check out Roman Riva on Amazon. From dork to pimp daddy, it's about his journey as an artist, going from like Joe blue collar schlub to a guy who beautiful women pay for the privilege of painting them naked. But it's as much art instruction as it is a personal journey. It's a fascinating book. So check it out. You can find that on Amazon, and you can find him on Twitter as well. Was that? Yeah. Oh man, your mom was something, brother. Your mom was something. I remember all those days. I remember like getting used to that tradition of having to come in and take the boots off every time. We're not going to track up the house, but oh man, and that, oh god, that Filipino food that she used to cook for us. Jesus, bro, man, I would beat up a stranger in front of his kids for some of that old flip food that we used to mac on together when we were back like jamming and doing our late night guitar sessions. Man, memories, bro, memories, dude. You're gonna make me tear up. Anyway, Roman, thank you. I appreciate you, brother. And I got to give a shout out to my Viking brothers, Casey and Dusty Tellison. Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the inland Northwest, period. End of statement, bar none, full freaking stop. Sit down, shut up, you're wrong. They are the only legit barbecue in the inland Northwest. They have the long ship out there. Brother Dennis finally got to get his little sample on when he was up here for a visit recently. Him and his mom got to sample some of that Nordic smoke, and he can attest to it. Sonny, if he happens to pop in, I don't need to regale you guys again with the barbecue ribs incident. Fantastic stuff, man. And they have been very good friends of mine and very strong supporters of the program and really everything that I've done over the past several years. Really good friends. And they also, one of them, Casey, combat vet brother, he has a book out as well. Casey Tellison, Freaks of a Feather. It is a combat memoir that started out as a suicide note. I'm happy that he talked himself out of it. But man, I got to tell you, you have to put eyes to this book. It is a fantastic piece of literature. Brother has got a gift that you just would not believe for walking you across that inner landscape of some of these combat zones, some of the horrors that he's seen, the duality of man, as they said in Full Metal Jacket. You know what I mean? He got to live that in the sandbox as a Marine machine gunner. It'll change you, man. It'll definitely rock you. It's a fantastic book. Freaks of a Feather, published by Latop Press out of Spokane, Washington. And Casey is now passed the bar, graduated. He's a practicing lawyer. Dusty is doing the pitmaster thing, but I love both those guys, and they've been really strong supporters. So, Nordic Smoked Barbecue, check them out on every social media platform. Look at this, careful how you phrase that, Mama. That is Miss Julie. I knew her as Julie Deal. She is happily married now. Let me reinforce that before I go off on the tear about how she was my jaw-dropped, salivating high school crush for years and years and years. She's so pretty. Yeah, I was that freaking guy. Thankfully, I hadn't reached my stalker phase at that point. So no, totally kidding. Julie, it's good to have you on board, man. And thank you as well for all the supportive comments and things like that in my absence. You guys keep me honest, man, and I appreciate it. All right, guys, let's jump into this thing because we got a lot of stuff to cover. First of all, we are going to open with everyone's favorite segment. We are talking about Ryan's Rabbit Hole. Yes. And the thunderous roar of applause. Please, guys, let me know in the comments if the applause is coming through. Because if the applause is not coming through, none of the other sound effects that we're going to be doing later are going to be coming through. And I just never know, man. I gotta spend some money for some production here. I really like the way Sonny's got his stuff laid out. We'll get into that later. But in the meantime, between time, guys, I am talking about Ryan's Rabbit Hole. That is the segment that we always start off with, and it's the first side segment that we ever came up with back when we were still on the wind farm together up in Nebraska. One of the things that Ryan and I bonded over early on is the fact that we were both repositories of useless information. We are horrible people to try to play a game of Trivial Pursuit against because we know a little something about every little esoteric bit of everything, and we'll dazzle you with the stuff that we know that you just really wouldn't have expected. So the rabbit hole, basically, the way that it works is every week we take a historical figure or historical event or some bizarre conspiracy or some little bit of hidden history or some bit of esoteric knowledge or some cultural phenomenon, and sometimes it dovetails with what the rest of the sermon's about and sometimes it doesn't. But what it is supposed to do is kind of take you off the beaten path and down the rabbit hole. It's supposed to plant a couple of seeds and you go, that seems pretty damned interesting, and then you go ahead and follow through with that on your own, as far as you choose to do it based on your own interest. And some weeks we go historical, and some weeks conspiratorial, and some weeks esoteric. This week we're kind of doing an esoteric / religious, guys. I want you to dial up the I Am movement, or the I Am temple, right? And it's exactly like it sounds. I Am Temple. I want you guys to look that up. Fellow by the name of Guy Ballard and his wife, Edna. It's a cult, guys. Let me address that just right out of the starting gate. It's a cult, right? Cult doesn't necessarily mean bad. Cults have given us some very great things. The faith that I pursue right now started off as what would be considered a cult in the eyes of the Roman Empire. CrossFit is a cult, and it has done wonders for a number of people's fitness, and it has also done wonders for the bank accounts of a number of orthopedic surgeons over the years. So anytime you hear the word cult, people take it instantly as a pejorative. That's not necessarily true. It was essentially rooted in if you're familiar with Madame Blavatsky, and some of those spiritual movements as well. It's what would be a good way to break this down? If you guys are familiar with the with Saint Germain Foundation and some of the conspiracy theories that revolve around that, but these notions are very esoteric in nature, and they basically provide for enlightened ones, right? That there are certain members of the human species that are just elevated for whatever reason, whether God ordained it that way or whether through their own personal spiritual exploration, they were able to attain that higher consciousness. And that was the nature of. And some of the offshoots of that, some of the guys that came off of the I Am Temple movement include a guy named Mark Prophet. I mean, yeah, he couldn't have been blessed with a better last name than that. But he founded an organization called the Keepers of the Summit Lighthouse in 1958, and they became more a political organization than a religious organization. Uh, and they were staunch anti-communist. Now, compare and contrast that with another cult you may have heard of called the People's Temple, and a fellow that you also may have heard of called Jim Jones. Jim Jones funded a number of hard left California politicians, including Jerry Brown, right, including Willie Brown, and therefore had some tangential connection to Kamala Harris's early political aspirations, even though she was only a child when Jones was doing his best work before that nasty little incident with the Flavor Aid down in Guyana. The point is this: out of these spiritual organizations, right? The Church Universal and Triumphant, that was another one that came off of Ballard's work. A lot of people will make a case for being able to tax churches, right? That if they are going to be involved in politics, that they need to be taxed. This is one of the reasons why we have to hold the line so hard against that, because once you allow people to define what is a church and what is a cult, and once you pull off all the restrictions and start allowing state programs to determine what is or isn't for purposes of taxation, the power to tax is the power to destroy. So you got to be careful. I understand that people like Ballard got involved in politics, and some of his followers later on got deeply involved in the political end of it as well. Anyway, didn't want to belabor the point. The roots of it are in theosophical societies. I don't know how deep you want to do the dive, so I'm going to leave it up to you as far as theosophy and that. But some of these enlightened ones that we were talking about, according to them, included people like Madame Blavatsky. Christ was considered one of those elevated humans. Maitreya, and they referred to them as the masters of ancient wisdom, and accorded them the reverence that one would accord to a spiritually elevated figure. In any case, Ballard wound up dying in 1939, just in time to avoid some real nastiness on the world scene. But a number of offshoots came off of that, and some of them, and this is why I'm just planting the seeds for the rabbit hole. We're not going to do a deep dive on it, but I'm going to let you guys do your own homework. Mark Prophet, I did want to do just a quick mention. Keepers of the Summit Lighthouse in 1958, and a lot of UFO cults. Yeah. So several of those have come out of the I Am movement and the work that Ballard did in the 1930s. He was only like really high profile on a national scale for 10 years. Okay. But what he was able to do there and the offshoots that he was able to produce, again, turned a lot of people. His usefulness was more in the things that he turned the people onto, because the U.S. has always been a Christian nation. Propaganda aside, the U.S. has always been primarily a Christian nation. Christian and Catholic, you can miss me with that whole Judeo shit, just save it. But a Christian Catholic nation, as has been the West. And Ballard basically turned a predominantly Christian nation on to a lot of Eastern mysticism, and particularly in the California scene, because, those people are quick to bite. But his roots were in Chicago. That's right, man. Chicago, Illinois, Daily grad. Yeah. What do we know about Chicago politicians? Right. So basically, the same things that Jim Jones and the People's Temple were doing for California politicians, Guy Ballard was doing for Chicago politicians in the 1930s when it was still down and dirty. Again, just planting the seeds here. The I Am movement and the I Am Temple, Guy Ballard. And those are going to be your search engines. And that is your rabbit hole for the week. I appreciate you guys coming out. Let me bounce back over to the chats real quick, see if I missed anybody. Tom Hollyby, man, don't worry about being late. I'm happy that you showed up. That live that you did with Brother Sonny this week was phenomenal. Guys, let me brag on my bro Tom a little bit. All right. Speaking of people who will overwhelm you with their historical and esoteric acumen, who can literally talk your freaking ear off and leave you just buried in information. Not many people can do that for me. Tom will bury me. I think Tom largely, particularly on a historical level, would bury me and Ryan sitting at the same table at the same time. But beyond all that, he's a good man, and he's been an outstanding husband and father, and provided very well for his wife and kids. Um, and there have been some adverse circumstances with regard to that he has overcome very well, which is a testament to his strength as a human being. He decided a while back, and when I say a while back, I'm talking years, that what should have did Isaiah 45 instead. Yeah, maybe, but you know what? We're it's odd because I think we're probably going to we're going to wind up touching on some of that material before we get out of here too, even in a kind of offhanded sort of way. Anyway, with regard to Tom, he decided that he was going to go into the combatives and self-defense field. He wanted to train people with the skill set that he had spent years acquiring, and he has put in the work. He's put in the mileage. He has trained with all the top dogs. He trained with Jaeger before Jaeger's tragic passing, may he rest in peace. He's trained with Brother Sonny extensively. His list of people that he has learned at the feet of is longer than I can even keep track. And he jumped in with both feet, and the slings and arrows of the toxic, deceptive, pus dripping world of the combative field now hit him hard, coming right out of the starting gate. And he had to take a couple of steps back and re-examine. It's like, how bad do I really want this? And he came to grips with it, and he wrapped his head around it, and he said, "No, man, I'm gonna." Well, okay, right. Sorry. Yep, fair enough. You're right. Tactical response. Sorry, I threw Jaeger's name out because that's what everybody identifies with it. Yeah, don't catch me because somebody will come back on that later. It's like, oh yeah, man, so I've never seen you train with Jaeger. He never trained with Jaeger. No, but he trained extensively in tactical response. And in fact, if memory serves, Tom, you were actually doing a class with tactical response when you came through Spokane that one time. You were doing, I believe, a pistol class with some of the tactical response guys, if memory serves. I've got some head trauma. Anyway, back to it. He has doubled down. He's renewed his efforts, and he is coming hard charging out of the gate once again as a tactical instructor. And I, for one, am certainly looking forward to it because the man has a skill set and he's got a gift for presentation as well. So all you guys up here in the Northwest, and there are a number of you who have been hitting me up, it's like, yeah, man, you always go down to Texas, but it's like, who can we train with up here? Well, I got Tom. That's right. I got Tom. And he's putting some things together, and he's got some things in the works, and anything that I can do to assist to that end, you have me for whatever I'm worth, brother. And I'm really glad to see that you didn't get buried with all that stuff. I never doubted. I knew deep down you were just going to be like, you know what, screw these guys. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. But as someone who's been involved in that field myself, I understand that those slings and arrows can be pretty fucking overwhelming. They're literally just making an effort to psychologically and spiritually beat you down. And it's no small thing to overcome. But Tom, I'm glad you did. I'm glad for that. And you guys can find that either on Tom's page on Facebook or Brother Sonny's page. You can find that on Facebook, the Facebook Live that he did with Brother Sonny earlier this week. So you guys should check that out, get a little feel for who Tom is. And if you're up here in the Northwest or closer here than you are to Texas, well, then he's going to be putting some things together. So let's get on out here and let's get some training time. Because with everything that's going on, TikTok, sons of bitches, TikTok. All right. So let's move on, guys. Bullet point number 1. Ontology. Ontology. Yeah, that's one of my other 3 college words. The ontological problem. It's a philosophical argument that suggests that if God exists, then his existence has to be compatible with all metaphysical possibilities. Yes? Yes. That means in the sense of, and Ryan, if you're wondering, hey, man, this sounds vaguely familiar. Yes. Oh, stabbers and stubbers. I love that, man. I absolutely love that. Stabbers and stubbers. I'm looking forward to that class, my brother. Ryan, I know you're hearing the ontological argument and you're thinking, wow, this sounds vaguely familiar, because yes, we did have that conversation while I was out on the road. Guys, we have to own it as Christians. If God created everything, where does evil come from? Obviously, that is part of his creation, is it not? Is it not intellectually dishonest to try to act as if that wasn't as much a part of his creation as all of the good things and all the blessings and everything else? What we do with that evil is part of the free will that is also part of his divine plan. This is my analysis of it. But that is the ontological argument in a nutshell. We're not here to talk about the ontological argument about whether God could have prevented evil. We're talking about the ontological nature of some evil, which is basically to say that an ontological evil, by definition, is evil inherently. It's evil by its very nature. Speaking back to the conversation that Ryan and I were having, we as humans have free will. We can choose to do acts which are evil, right? We can choose to overwhelm even our biological imperatives, to overwhelm what we know in our hearts to be right and true and correct, and we can choose to do these things. Most people, the overwhelming majority of people who do evil, are not necessarily evil people. Keep in mind, human understanding, right? The scriptural understanding is we are all flawed and evil and deserve hell, and it is only through the blood of Christ that we are saved. I am speaking purely within the human context here. It's important that we line out the definition of terms before we actually get into the meat of it. That's the old high school debater in me, and I was a mass debater in high school, and it was. I want to make sure that the terms are delineated before we get into the meat of this thing. Ontological evil is an agent that is of and by its very nature evil. Where do we draw the line when it comes to what is ontologically evil versus evil by choice and evil by action? Where do we draw the line? We actually don't. Boss man draws that line. We make judgments about where that line is drawn. And we can base that on behavior, and we can base that on outside circumstances. We can base that on how did this person get here, and we can look at environmental factors and psychological screw jobs and brain trauma, things like that. What got the person to the point where he's committing these acts? But when it is institutional, it is easier to make the case for an evil being ontological than the actions of a particular individual. Do you understand? When you have a single person doing even the most horrible things, super depraved things. It is an individual acting on his own volition, on his own motivations, and by his own free will. Yes? When a group of those individuals begins acting in concert to that specific end, well, now we have groupthink, and now we have mob mentality, and now we have a group of people who are all exercising their free will together towards an evil end. Is it an evil in and of itself at that point? Not necessarily. But when that group continues to act in concert, or that institution continues to act in concert to perform these same evil acts or some manifestation of those evil acts, and it becomes systemic, then at some point it does take on a life of its own. And when it takes on a life of its own, it becomes an ontological evil. You guys tracking with me so far? Everybody with it? Already covered that, Ryan. Already covered that. You just be happy right now because it's our conversation and your question that fired me off on this thing. We are inherently evil by nature. That is what we are, inherently evil by nature. Scripturally, I am drawing a distinction between the human understanding and the scriptural understanding, okay? Because our perception and our definition of, yeah, this guy bad, this guy good, different from what is laid out in the scripture, okay? So we're just roll with it, baby. Roll with it. Just know that I'm happy that you set me off on this thing. This and one other thing that I was reading the same night is what set me off on this. So let's talk about institutions. Once it becomes institutional and these things take on a life of their own, it does become innate and ontologically evil. Innately evil. Systemically evil. What could be evil about wanting to advance the species? Here's where we butt up against it, right? What would be evil about wanting to advance our species? Shouldn't we want to expand our knowledge? Shouldn't we want to expand our understanding of ourselves physically, psychologically, spiritually, historically, culturally? Shouldn't that be top priority? What could possibly be evil about that? Okay. Would you guys be with me in agreeing that there is some innate value to each human? Doesn't mean that their life has to be preserved at all costs or anything like that. Scriptural God through man killed over 3 million and Satan 0. Disagree. Couldn't disagree more, but we're not going to go any further down. We're not going to go any further down that track than this. The secular humanist doctrine of communism. Right? If we are going to say that the absence of good is evil, if we are going to say that the absence of God is Satan, and you can disagree with me on that, but in any case, we are looking there at an ontological evil. So that's a pretty good example. Whether or not they put Satan's brand on it, whether they put the Dark Lord's brand on it, is something else entirely. But when they are performing these acts to the deliberate exclusion of any religious institution, then it does become an institution in and of itself, does it not? That spiritual understanding of we hate everything so much, right? We hate everything so much that we're just going to get rid of all of it. But you will bow down and worship the state. Now, you could say Satan 0 because he didn't put his handiwork on it, but we know the way that Scratch operates, don't we? He doesn't like his fingerprints on things. And you and I have frequently agreed in previous conversations that he didn't have that kind of power. All he can do is plant seeds. Right? And if we're going to give that body count, who's planting the seeds on the far end? If scriptural God is planting the seeds on the one end, then the absence of that has to be planting it on the other. It's a conversation for another day. What I'm wanting to get into today is science. Follow the science. The rise of the expert class, the rise of the infallibility of science. And since we're on that topic, the usurpation of religion by science. God is dead. Science and the scientific method. Right, he does. You're absolutely right. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that because I know Scratch doesn't have that kind of power. All he can do is plant seeds. That's a personal weakness, right? That's a very personal weakness that most of us carry. I own my shit. Professed, yes. Mao was not. Are we going to compare body counts? Mao was not. Stalin was not. Got to own it. Different conversation for another time. Today we're doing science. Science and medicine becoming the new priesthood, since we're talking about ontological evils. Science, medicine, the new priesthood. What could possibly be evil about wanting to understand ourselves better, right? And the excuses that we use to ignore the atrocities that are carried out in the name of a particular religion. Touching briefly on what Ryan and I are having the side discussion about. If we own ours, they have to own theirs. Now, the easy out there would be, yeah, but that's just humanism. That's not bowing down before the altar of Satan. And you could make that, right? You could make that argument. He prays on tolerance, rewards of tolerance for treachery and betrayal, right? We make our choices. We make our choices as to who we revere. Getting back to the actual subject at hand here. We make our decisions as to who we revere. And do we not revere doctors? Do we not revere scientists? Particularly in light of the hysteria that's been created about every little infection, about every little medical crisis, about every little cough and hiccup. Science! 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 Follow the doctor. Science! Listen to the experts. Scientific curiosity. That is, of course, the bullet point, isn't it? Ontological evil versus scientific curiosity. We are in the pursuit of knowledge. We want to know ourselves a little bit better. We need to take a serious look at the people that we are choosing to revere. Does the Catholic Church not have to own it? When priests are playing Little Lord Fauntleroy and they're found out and it's found that was covered up on an institutional level, is that not ontological evil? I submit to you that it is. Bad enough that you are letting it happen, but to go the one step further to cover it up and to not remove these people from circulation, knowing their history and potentially exposing more to it, that is an ontological evil. Wouldn't we all agree? Christians, Catholics, Jews, atheists, humanists, wouldn't we all agree that that is ontological evil? Everybody good with that? Anybody have a retort to that? My assertion is that, yes, that is ontologically evil. And we would be right to hold them accountable, would we not? And yet, we do not hold the same standard to the purely humanist notion of medicine and science. This is going to be your search terms, guys. Real easy for the first one. Human experiments. When I say human experiment, when I say human experimentation, over in the chat window, throw out the first thing that you think of. Yes, they absolutely have. Yes, they absolutely have corrupted medicine. When I say human experiments, what's the first thing that comes to mind, people? This will be an easy one for you. Come on. Everybody knows. What's the one we're constantly beating over the head with? What do we all know about when you talk about experiments being performed on living human beings? Come on, guys. You already know. You already know. Funny mustache man. Dennis. Yep. There you go. There you go. MK Ultra. Yep. There you go. World War II. Japanese Germany. Yes. Unit 731. Concentration camps. Mengele and his work with twins. And then going further, JT, mind control, Dennis throwing out MK Ultra, North Korea's experiments on torture. I'm so glad you brought that up because that's one of the bullet points that I pulled aside. Part of it is our cultural understanding of ontological evil. Part of it is our cultural understanding, not just of ontological evil, but the people that perpetrate it and the systems that perpetrate it. That is how it is allowed to manifest. That is how it is allowed to continue. Because we won't call it what it is. In the same way that a lot of devout Catholics did not want to call out the sexual abuse that priests were performing on choir boys and acolytes and all this other stuff, people inside the medical community in particular are reluctant to call out the horrible things that are going on. We act as if human experimentation was something in the past, a distant past, no less. Well, testing out, and I'm just throwing some things out just from the pages that I pulled up. During the Manhattan Project, gave way to the atomic bomb, U.S. scientists resorted to secret human testing by plutonium injection on 18 unsuspecting, non-consenting patients. Guys familiar with Henrietta Lacks? 1950s? Unwitting source of cells which were cultured for the purpose of medical research. And her cells have been kept alive and cloned, used for cancer research, AIDS research, gene mapping. She was robbed of what should have been hers, but that is a small, small thing on the scale of systemic evil. In the 1950s, a state school in New York did not deliberately infect children with hepatitis, but left them in unsanitary conditions where the virus was present and realized that them contracting hepatitis was inevitable. And they tried experimental treatments on these same children. Cornell University provided the CIA with unwitting, if not unwilling, human subjects for experiments involving imprisonment, deprivation, humiliation, torture, brainwashing, hypnoses, and drugs, all under MK Ultra. You guys familiar with Unit 731? Do I even need to belabor this one? Unit 731, I have a copy of the book, Unit 731 Testimony. I read it at least once a year. It's a small book. It's a short, easy read. Every time I catch myself forgetting about the true darkness at the root of the human soul, I give that book a read. They removed organs from live bodies. Prisoners of war, political dissidents, people who weren't considered loyal enough to the emperor, Chinese farmers, which is funny in retrospect because the same Chinese farmers who were unwilling lab rats for a Japanese medical unit, Unit 731, do some homework on that. We've done a rabbit hole on it a couple of times, I think, actually. We've touched on 731 in the rabbit hole. So same Chinese farmers now Or lab rats for their own government. Chinese Communist government. You know that U.S. prisoners were used to test Agent Orange before it was ever deployed in Vietnam? Dow Chemical Company and Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson pharmaceutical firm and Dow Chemical. They used U.S. convicts, and they said that they were doing a study on dermatological research. They injected these prisoners with dioxin, almost 500 times the amount that he was authorized to do it. Skin-burning chemicals. Watch the results. It's a horror show, man. Absolute horror show. But it gets so much worse. Our own CIA. We already know. CIA. I'm going to read this verbatim because it hit me this powerfully when I was looking at it. Bobby will experience 8 electroshock sessions. Placed on the examining table, he is held down by 2 male attendants while the physician places a solution on his temples. Bobby struggles with the 2 men holding him down, but his efforts are useless. He cries out and tries to pull away. One of the attendants tries to force a thick wedge of rubber into his mouth. He turns his head sharply away and cries out, "Let me go, please. I don't want to be here. Please let me go." Bobby's physician looks irritated, and she tells him, "Come on now, Bobby. Try to act like a big boy and still relax." Bobby turns his head away from the woman and opens his mouth for the wedge that is there to prevent him from biting through his tongue. He cries silently, his small shoulders shaking, and he stiffens his body against what he knows is coming. 8 years old. Electroconvulsive therapy. A 5-year-old girl named Mary. Same series of experiments under the same auspices of the same guys at Langley with the CIA. Mary's mother has never wanted her anyway and was happy to have her placed in another home. When the LSD that Mary has been given, 5 years old now, begins to have its effects, she stops moving her head and legs and sits staring at the wall. She doesn't move at all. After about 10 minutes, and this is what got me, after about 10 minutes, she looks at the nearby physician observing her and says, "God isn't coming back today. He's too busy. He won't be back here for weeks." For 13 years, these experiments were carried on at a slew of hospitals. Okay. The hidden tragedy of the CIA's experiments on children. If you want to look, you can read this article yourself, and I encourage you to do so. But the saddest part of all of this, is the fact that electroconvulsive therapy is making a comeback. Scientific quest. None of this stuff ever goes away. You understand that? I was happy to see psychedelic treatment make a comeback in PTSD veterans. Do you think for 1 second that that's not going to be utilized on children? Do you think for 1 second that any of these things are going to be precluded by the fact that they are children? Let me break it down for you like this. Scientific curiosity, right? Scientific curiosity. Scientific curiosity was allegedly at the root of the transgender movement, was it not? Why don't you look into some of that history? The first transition surgeries. What's at the root of all of these things? Money and control. Yes. Pharmaceutical companies making a ton of loot off of treatment. Doctors making a ton of loot. Do you think that this gender affirming care thing isn't affected by the fact that every one of these transition surgeries puts hundreds of thousands of dollars in a doctor's pocket? Do you understand that? That in spite of the fact that Europe has ruled out puberty blockers and forbidden transition surgeries on minors, that America keeps pushing it. The American left in particular, they keep pushing it because they're so concerned. They're so concerned for the mental health of these young boys and girls that are going through gender dysphoria. It's a legitimate, heartfelt concern. These people are butchers. These people are butchers. These people are ghouls. And we continue to hold them up. Why? Because of the double standard that exists in being able to call something ontological evil. These aren't doctors acting alone. You understand? What would it have been like for the Catholic Church if they would have offered up as an excuse? Well, and they did offer that up as an excuse. Well, it's a few bad apples. It's a few bad apples acting alone. The institution isn't to blame. How'd that work out? Did we just go, yeah, you're right, man, just a few bad apples? No harm, no foul, man. Let's get rid of those few bad apples. Or did people continue to, and let me reiterate, correctly berate the institution because it had become an ontological evil? Catholics, I'm not picking on you. I'm not picking on the Catholic faith. I am picking on the Catholic Church. Do you understand? The faith and the institution not only need to be kept separate, they must be kept separate. In every discussion, always be able to draw that distinction. You've heard me put it like this: my walk is not with the building, my walk is with the carpenter. You guys tracking? But when it comes down to ontological evil, scientific curiosity cannot be used as an excuse anymore. We have to take a look and realize that medicine itself is the new priesthood, and medicine itself, the institution, has been bought, sold, corrupted, and is now in the hands of the deceiver, for lack of a better word. Oh, you don't believe in that heaven and hell stuff? Cool. All right, cool. Then they have just become an institution of evil pricks. And if you don't think that good and evil exists, well, then you and I don't have anything further to discuss, do we? But we all know better. We can look at evil and we can call it what it is. Whether or not we have the courage to do so is going to be something different. The Nazis ran medical experiments. Unit 731 ran horrible experiments. Do you know what happened to the doctors, Unit 731? Do you know what happened at the end of the war? We gave them full pardons in exchange for their research, and we put them to work with medical institutions and pharmaceutical companies here in the United States. Look that up. That's not a conspiracy theory. You guys familiar with the monster study? I'm not even going to spoil that one for you. I'm going to let you do it yourself. Until the 1830s, the only legally available bodies for dissection or anatomists were those of executed murderers. Executed murderers being a relative rarity, many anatomists look to buying bodies from grave robbers. What do the communist Chinese do? They execute prisoners. The organs get sold in the organ trade, and their bodies are used for experimentation. And who is it that we say that we're going to model ourselves after in our systems in the West? Who is Trudeau expressing appreciation and admiration of? You guys know about the Tuskegee syphilis study, don't you? Right? You guys know about the one that we did in Guatemala? Or any of the Central American countries? Difference between Tuskegee and stuff that we did in Central America was Tuskegee. These black men were already infected with syphilis when they showed up. In Guatemala, we deliberately infected people with syphilis and other diseases. Deliberately infected them to run experiments. Go ahead and ask me, because you know you want to. Oh yeah, but we didn't do that to kids. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. You and I can project our own morality. But we have to realize the darkness of these people, and they do hold themselves above. Just like every Catholic priest that ever diddled a little boy felt like his actions were blessed by God, every single member of the medical priesthood feels like they are exalted above us rabble. That we, as the peasants, need to bow down before their religious authority and do what we're told. And our government institutions back them up. And some of you guys are even dumb enough to do it. I have people very close to me that bow and scrape for the fucking priesthood in spite of what it has cost them. It is a subject of no end of consternation for me, believe it. But they're the priesthood. They can't be questioned. Ontological, systemic evil. And I'm going to leave you one last search engine, then we're going to move on to the next thing. One last search engine term. Baby experiments. University of California, 1960s. Yep. This is no longer conspiracy theory. And I'm no longer going to treat it as if any of this is something where we can agree to disagree. And as we go forward, these other couple of talking points that I want to hit up on before we get out of here. None of this is something where we can agree to disagree anymore. Well, civil people can agree to disagree. No. You're wrong. You're wrong. I know it. You know it. So we're not going to play patty cake and have the discussion as if I don't know that you're lying to me, and as if you are not lying to me, and as if you don't know that you're lying to me, and that we're agreeing to disagree because we're being civil. You are a lying piece of shit. Best case scenario, you're a coward. Best case scenario, you're a coward. Worst case scenario, you are ontologically evil. And at the very least, you can't call evil for what it is, even when it's looking you in the face. That indicates one of two things. Either A, a very suspect moral compass, or B, a complete unwillingness, bordering on cowardice, if not feet first into cowardice. I have no room for you anymore. You people who are out here watching, you shouldn't have room for these people either, and I don't care who they are. That patience should already be running thin, and they could be very close. They could be a family member. They could be someone you've been in a long-term relationship with. But they have gotten comfortable that you're not going to confront them. For whatever reason, maybe your own weakness, because you just didn't want to bring it up because you were just tired of arguing. That has got to end. I don't care who they are. I don't care what they mean to you. And I don't care how viscerally you're going to feel their loss if they walk. Let them fucking walk. Playtime's over. Oh, our differences are what really brings the dynamic. No. That's something you have the luxury for. That's something you have the luxury for when everything is coasting along. We're not there anymore. This ontological evil in and of itself, if you can't call it out, we have nothing to discuss. Oh, so I guess you're just going to shun all doctors now, huh? No. Dana White had a great interview while I was out. He had a great interview. If I break an arm, I'm going to go see a doctor. If I get shot, I'm going to go see a doctor. But for my general health, for my day-to-day life, I'll never see another doctor again as long as I live. Nor take their word for anything. They know shit beyond what they're indoctrinated into. Okay? I look at doctors in the same way that I look at a good mechanic. For day-to-day stuff, I won't bother a mechanic. I can change my own oil. I can do a hell of a lot of wrenching. I can tune this. I can, change out a manifold. I can, pull this part, swap out a diff. I don't bother them at all unless I have to. If I have to, I go to them because they are mechanics. They have spent time building a particular skill set. That's why I'm going to see them. Outside of that, I have no use for them whatsoever. And if they come and try to offer me an opinion on anything outside of the mechanical, fuck them. You know what to say to you. What do you know? Medicine, same way. Fuck these people. Stop according them any more respect. These people are freaking ghouls, man. There are good doctors out there. Make no mistake. There are good doctors out there. I hope you can find one if you wind up needing one. But this bow down and slough and scrape shit, enough. Enough. No more. We got to respect the expert. Fuck the experts. And I'm sorry. I know my language is really out of control right now, and I haven't been keeping as tight a lid on that as I had been. I'm slipping a little bit, and I apologize. I'm a little bit emotional with regard to this stuff. But this is ontological evil. This is the institution that had no problem whatsoever feeding radioactive isotopes to retarded children. This is the institution that in those University of California experiments, I'll go ahead and do one spoiler for you, ran probes up the umbilical arteries of newborns up into their aorta. And then proceeded, while that probe was in place, to measure how it affected their blood pressure. They put 10 kids at a time on circumcision tables and hung them upside down so all the blood would rush to their head, and measured how that affected their blood pressure and their circulation. They took newborns and sat them with their feet in buckets of ice water. Yeah, I said I wasn't going to do the spoilers. You can look it up. There's a lot worse than this. They took newborns and measured the effect on a newborn's heart rate when you soaked him from the waist down in ice cold water. This is a newborn baby. Long and short of it is, careful who you give your respect to just because of the institution that they represent, because they certainly don't deserve it. Stop, particularly you guys, otherwise intelligent individuals, man, otherwise intelligent people out there, ones who walk in reason and not in faith. Cool, I get it. Right on. But be consistent. You're not going to take it on blind faith that this happens, but you're going to take it on blind faith that this guy somehow has your best interest at heart because of the field that he represents. Go to hell. Nobody looks at a priest anymore and says, he's got my best interest at heart and he knows what he's talking about when spiritual in matters of the spirit because he's a priest or he's a pastor. Why? Because they represent an institution that's been caught doing really horrible shit and covering it up. People used to see priests and think, if I have this is a guy who lives right, is basically good, someone I can trust, particularly if I'm suffering a personal crisis in matters of the spirit or matters of the flesh. I can talk to this guy because he's got his head on straight and he's got my best interest and the world's best interest at heart. He's a good man and I can count on that. Nobody feels that way anymore. And maybe that's a good thing. Nobody feels that way anymore because the institution was called out of a period of ontological evil. It became evil in and of itself. The deceiver worked his corruption, got his hands in the church, and Ryan, I can already hear you. It's not Satan's fault they did it. They did it. Satan planted the seed, tweaked that lust a little bit, but they are the ones that did it. They are the ones that are accountable. You don't get to do that devil made me do it shit. You don't get to. And because you did it, and because you allowed it to happen, and because you knew it was happening and didn't pull these people out, and because more kids got abused because you knew it was happening and you didn't pull these people out, at some point, the institutional evil took on a life of its own and became an ontological evil. You guys follow me? And as a result of this, now when people see priests, the first knee-jerk reaction they have isn't, wow, man, here's a guy who could really help me out. I'm suffering some spiritual issues right now. This is probably a good man. This is probably somebody I can trust. People see a priest now, they see that clerical collar, they think, well, I wonder how many little boys he touched. Fair enough. That is a reasonable response, given everything that's happened. Catholics, Christians, wouldn't you agree that culturally that's a reasonable response, given what we know now? So why is it that these same reasonable, otherwise intelligent people cannot apply the same standard of measure to an institution that has tortured newborns, that has deliberately infected people with syphilis, that has injected people with dioxin and Agent Orange, that has done experiments on newborns, that promotes electroconvulsive therapies and lobotomies, and is now risen to the level that they are sexually mutilating kids. And yet, these same otherwise intelligent, reasonable people can't look at the ontological evil of this institution and go, I don't trust that son of a bitch. I see a doctor now, that's my reaction. Well, I graduated. I'm a neurosurgeon and I'm into gender affirming care. I want to gut you. In that same visceral way that a lot of people feel about priests. They see about priests, you stay away from my child, I will cut your balls off. I see a gender affirming care doctor, I feel exactly the same way. And the irony of me cutting his balls off shouldn't be lost on either one of us. Ontological evil, institutional evil. Recognize it and be able to call it out and react accordingly. Exercise some consistency across the board. I understand why you feel a certain kind of way when you see a priest and you see a clerical collar. Now, of course, the Grazer response is, well, we got to treat everybody as an individual. No, dude, no. I'm not that guy. I totally get why you feel that way. And I think that distrust is not only not unhealthy, I think that level of skepticism is probably going to serve you well going forward in life. So why don't you exercise the same logic for the medical field? Because all Father Flanagan did was juggle your little boy's balls. Dr. Feelgood wants to sever them. Dr. Affirming Care wants to put him on irreversible hormones. Dr. Affirming Care probably spent his whole childhood giving him amphetamine salts. But they're doctors, and they're deserving of a certain amount of institutional trust. Do you hear yourself? Ontological evil, as opposed to the evil of a particular individual or group of individuals. The same stimulus should elicit the same response. If you twitch when you see a clerical collar and say, stay the hell away from my child, you better accord the same revulsion to somebody wearing medical scrubs, or damn you for a dishonest coward. Bottom line. So that's what the Rev says about that. Two more things I want to cover really quick before we get out of here. And Ryan, I really do. We're doing Isaiah 45 next week. I wish you'd have said something earlier, man. I really do. Ryan, if I hadn't mentioned it, I really fucking love you, man. When I say the word Epstein, what do you think? First thing that pops into your head when I say Epstein. Speaking of molesting kids, first thing when I say the word Epstein, what's the first thing that pops into your head? The first Epstein that pops into your head is Jeffrey Epstein. That financial advisor that committed a completely legit and unsuspicious suicide in a federal prison a few years back. That guy who was certainly not an intelligence agent for Mossad gathering blackmail material for Israeli intelligence so U.S. politicians could be openly manipulated. Okay, guys, I don't need to belabor that one. We've already done that one to death. But here's an Epstein that you've never heard of. Robert Epstein. When I say Robert Epstein, any of you guys heard of him? I've been following his work for quite a while. I've been following the man's work for quite a while. Not, as it turns out, as deeply as I should have been. How many of you guys? Yes or no? Real quick, yes or no in the comments. You guys know about Robert Epstein. You don't have to elaborate. Just real quick, yes or no. Nobody? Yeah. Robert Epstein is a psychologist. And for over a decade now, he has been doing in-depth research on social media and its effects on human psychology, but particularly how human psychology can be manipulated through search engine results. He came out in 2016. He was one of the, he'd been at it a lot longer than that. He'd been at it a lot longer than that. He actually started doing research on this kind of stuff prior to 2012 when nobody was talking about it. And when the same people who are now running Google were actually working as tech supervisors for the Barack Obama campaign. When I talk about the left playing the long game, I mean it in every sense of the word. Epstein's been doing some work on that and how effective just a manipulation of search engine results can be in foreign public opinion. Right? Now, in 2016, somebody made a comment about him on Twitter because he had pointed out the fact that Google was manipulating search results throughout the course of the election. After the election was over in 2016, right? After Trump had been voted in and Hillary had been kicked down the road a little bit, somebody tweeted something. A very prominent figure tweeted something about Robert Epstein. Now, Hillary could have left it alone, but apparently they had been following him for a while because she had a ready-made response to roll out. Somebody tweeted about Epstein, and she fired back with, his work has been totally debunked and his sample size was only 25 Democratic voters. Neither of those things were true. But Epstein at the time didn't even realize that she would even know who the hell he was. He was that obscure at the time. I'm posting a link right down here. I want you guys to go to it. That's the YouTube link, and it's Michael Knowles interviewing Robert Epstein, and I'm going to leave that link there while I talk about it. This is important stuff. Epstein was a lifelong liberal. For a while, he was the editor of Psychology Today, which is a liberal rag as ever there was. He wrote for a number of liberal publications, including The New Yorker, The Progressive, some of the other stuff. Very prominent, lifelong liberal. To this day, he remains a liberal. In spite of everything that he's found, he remains a liberal. Openly says so. But in classic fashion with the left, the minute he came out and spoke the truth, when the truth did not work in their favor, they completely disowned him. They labeled him a far-right extremist. I'm not making this up. You can Google any of it, and I want you to do the work yourselves. They labeled him a far-right extremist. They completely cut him loose. All the publications that he used to write for and make his money for completely quit taking his columns. Didn't even want to hear from him. He'd submit something for review and they wouldn't even respond anymore. Why? Because what he found was that a manipulation of search engine results can have massive impacts on public opinion. His first study that he did, and he was skeptical when he did his first study. He was like, oh my God, search engine results, because it was the right that was making noise about it. They were like, this isn't fair, man. I go to look for this thing and, all these leftist causes pop up. As a good, dutiful liberal and also as a good scientist, he went in skeptically thinking, oh, this is crap. Let me just shut these people up. And what he found was that a simple change in search engine results in his very first study swayed the control group by 43%. Now, he didn't believe it. He figured, okay, I've got to see if I can replicate this. I had to have done something wrong. The second time he ran the experiment, 68%. The conclusion that he came to is that a manipulation of algorithms and search results in a search engine with the power of Google can literally affect tens of millions of votes in an actual election. I want you guys to go and I want you guys to watch that interview, and spoiler alert, Robert Epstein went before a group of attorney generals and gave his results. early on when he was doing the research. A group of attorney generals, including Ken Paxton from Texas. At the end of that conference, somebody came out and they said, listen, I'm not trying to freak you out or anything, but you should really watch your back, because in light of what you just presented, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that you're going to die in an accident inside of 6 months. Now, obviously, he's still alive to do the interview, so he didn't die in an accident inside of 6 months. However, just a couple of months after that, his wife, according to the eyewitness behind her, watching her, mysteriously lost control of her car as she was trying to get onto an interstate and got broadsided by an 18-wheeler towing a tandem load of cement. Didn't kill her instantly. She was alive in agonizing pain for days after, but she eventually did die. Fast forward a couple of years after that, something happened with regard to the servers that were carrying his research. His son went over to catch the search, went over to see what was going on with the servers. Said, I'll call you when I get there, Dad. Hour goes by, no phone call. 2 hours go by, no phone call. 3 hours go by, no phone call. He finally gets the phone call. Hey, Dad, look, I didn't make it. What happened, son? Out of nowhere, his son's car got broadsided by a black sport utility vehicle, smashed into the driver's side, could have easily killed this boy, and then sped away from the scene of the accident. No investigation was ever done. The truck that had belonged to his wife just got sold from the impound yard. No forensic examination. The car his son had, same thing. No forensic examination, and just disappeared from the impound yard. You guys feeling me? This is one more thing that we have going against us as we go headlong into the November cycle. Watch that interview or download it on iTunes and listen to it. But listen to the whole damn thing. Robert Epstein is a liberal. He remains a liberal in spite of everything that he's seen. God admires tenacity, not his intelligence. But the stuff that he's doing is some of the most important research that's being done right now in light of the cultural zeitgeist. Which leads me to my final bullet point about what we know versus how we act. Knowledge versus actions. Guys, if somebody would have told you this, everybody got the link. You can back up, look at it later if you want. Everybody got the link. Everybody with two brain cells to rub together knows that Google manipulates search results. This is the predictable point where all of the left-leaning people, they know it too. You understand this. When they come out and they do the intellectual gymnastics where you say, look, man, everybody knows that Google manipulates search results. And they come out, oh, no, that's been thoroughly debunked. And that's... No, they're saying this, but they don't believe it. They know too. We know that the 2020 election was rigged. I don't say stolen because that's not something that we can prove. But we know that the 2020 election was rigged. That the FBI deliberately covered up the Hunter laptop, that Google manipulated search results and all these things. We know that. They know it too. These are things that aren't open for discussion anymore. So if you've got those people in your lives, first of all, what are they still doing there? What are they still doing there? You should be able to throw out these obvious things to anyone in your circle at this point, if they remain in your circle. And the only thing you should hear from that person in your circle is, yeah, I know. I know. If there's any hesitation on their part anymore at this stage of the game and how far it's gone, what are they still doing that close to you? Why do they even have that much stroke that they are that close to you at this stage of the game? There are things that you should be able to throw out that we just know. We know and they know as well. No matter how much they protest, no matter what intellectual gymnastics and hurdles and yoga mats they fold themselves up into, they know too. They do. They just don't care because it benefits them. Here are some examples. The 2020 election was rigged. Yeah, I know. They know it too. The COVID pandemic was an exercise in fear and control. I know it. They know it too. Masks did not work. Vaccines were ineffective and likely had major side effects. Yeah, I know. I know. That should be all you should hear from them. Or shit can them. Send them down the road. Here's some that are closer to home. And you're going to be interested hearing this first one out of my mouth. What they did to Joe Biden was a palace coup, and on principle was absolutely wrong. Yeah, I know. How come we didn't spend the whole sermon going over all of the things that went into that? Because there's no need. There's no need. I'm leaving that for other people to hash out. There are plenty of other podcasters out there that'll tell you, okay, this is how he did it, and this is who was responsible for it, and this is who made the call, and that thing in Nevada that happened, that's what opened the door, and this is the person that orchestrated the tweet. There are plenty of other people to do that. I'm just going to state the obvious. They stole it from the man. What they did to him was wrong. I have nothing but contempt for him, but what they did to the man was wrong. It was a palace coup. And therefore, any of these people that are still talking about saving democracy are beneath contempt. That's not a level of benevolent lie anymore. That's deliberately spitting in my face. Saying, yeah, I lied to you, so what? How serious am I? Ask my birth mother. Gee, Bart, that's hard. She's right. I'm supposed to let somebody that close to me who's going to lie to my face and judge me for calling them out on lies? If you have a problem with that, you can walk your ass out of my life too. But again, there's no need to get into the minutia. Plenty of other people will do that for you. Was the 2020 election rigged? Yes, and we all know it. Was the COVID pandemic an exercise in fear and control? Yes, and we all know it. Masks didn't work. Vaccines were not safe. They were not effective, and there were a ton of side effects. Yeah, we know. The assassination attempt on Trump was a regime-backed operation. Yeah, we all know. If they say anything else, they have no business in your life. They have no business in your circle. The West is under existential threat from other cultures that want to see it destroyed. Yeah, I know. The UK and all of Western Europe is the most obvious example of why we have to stop what we're doing here with our open borders, because once you let in an incompatible culture, they will eventually overwhelm you. They do not see the world the way that we do. And once they reach a certain numerical critical mass, they will overthrow us. Yeah, I know. That's it. Yeah, I know. Not, well, we can't judge all people by the actions of blah, blah, blah. Bye. Walk. 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 Yes, you. Walk. I have nothing further to say to you. We don't have time for these luxuries anymore, man. We don't. The economy is on the brink of collapse, and the cities are going to eat themselves. Yeah, I know. Blue city prosecutors are corrupt, and this is all by design. Yeah, I know. 13% of the population commit 52% of all the violent crimes. Yeah, I know. Literally, yeah, I know. Not, yeah, but what about the culture factor? You fucking economics. No. 13 to 50. Full stop. These are unpleasant things, man. But we don't have the luxury of wasting our energy on people that don't understand it anymore. What is going to happen going into November? It is what it is now. He chose a side, and so did I. God bless you for that, Doug. God bless you for having the strength, man. Bunch of things going wrong. Well, everything that happens just different bullet points in one plan. Absolutely. Absolutely. You cannot have someone in your circle who is afraid to confront a truth. And some things are just truth. Not my truth, not your truth. This is it. If it's not self-evident, and most of the time it is, if it's not self-evident, then numerically it'll be readily evident with 9 seconds on Google, even with their manipulated search results. So I don't have the time to waste on this anymore. I don't care who you are. I don't care how close you thought we were. There is a bigger thing going on right now, and literally no less than the fate of Western civilization hangs in the balance. What is going to happen going into November? Okay, well, a lot of things could happen going into November. This is the final bullet point. Are they going to jail Trump? Yes. Later this month, when that sentencing comes up, Mershon is going to jail Trump. Go ahead and get your head around that. How's the GOP going to react to it? I don't know. There's nothing preventing him from running a campaign from inside Rikers. Is the Supreme Court going to get involved? Unlikely. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see a weird sideways fantasy of Amy Coney Barrett, letting her balls drop. Okay, just do it that way. Whatever you want. I'm sorry. That was a Bart moment. Amy Coney Barrett with a penis. Anyway. Get off me. I would love to see the Supreme Court let their balls drop on something like that. I don't think it'll happen. Are they going to cheat? Yes, massively. Are they going to stuff ballot boxes? Yes, massively. Are they going to run the same game that they did in 2020? Yes, massively. They're not going to be able to do some things. They're not gonna right, JT. I know, because you know my proclivities, dude, and you know how my head works. So yeah, um, they're gonna run the same game they ran in 2020. They're gonna keep Kamala hidden away. They're gonna make her the blank slate that everybody can paint their own picture on. And I don't mean in that Willie Brown kind of way where he frosted her. I mean like just paint their own. Damn, dude, these jokes just write themselves. But let me say something to the Neil Rosses of the world. Yeah, I called you out by name, son. I did. And I'm about to punk you too. I appreciate the support. And I appreciate everything that we've shared over the years. But again, you're one of those people right now that I don't have the luxury for. But you can redeem yourself. Everybody who is out here black pilled right now, I've got this to say to you: sit down and shut up. Because in the same way that we can't let anybody close to us who is not on board at this point, we cannot let anybody stand in the way of the mission. And I gave y'all my word. If you do this for me, just this one last time, I'll never ask you to do it again. You'll never hear another word out of my mouth on that front again. And my word is my bond. You get your ass out there. You mark that ballot. You turn that ballot in. You call 10 friends. Thank you, Dan Bongino, for that idea. Call 10 friends and get them to vote. You push for voting. You push people to register and vote if they're first time voters. You tell people on your social media feeds to vote. And I see a lot of you out there. Olivia, I love you, but I know you're scoffing right now. Don Trost, I know, I love you, but I know you're out there scoffing right now. If voting can change anything, yeah, and you know what? You can make a perfectly good case for that. But just this once, I'm asking you to do it for me. Please. Participate in the system just this once. If for no other reason than to shut me up. And I promise you, if they pull off the steal again, never hear another word out of me. I will never ask you to participate in the system again. Ever. Just this once. Just for me. Just to shut me up. For the Neil Rosses of the world who are out there saying, dude, just don't even bother. Let me tell you the contempt I got for you right now, old friend. You feel that way? Cool. You hold that conviction? Cool. But I'm going to tell you something. If you're out there discouraging other people from participating because your bitterness has got the best of you, I had better see you in the street no later than November 7th with a rope and a rifle. And that goes for all of you. You're going to tell the rest of us don't even bother participating? You're going to deliberately interfere with people who might want to participate in the process and actively discourage people from doing things to be able to stand within the boundaries of what's been laid out for us just this once. Your ass had better be in the street with a rope and a rifle the day after the election, you son of a bitch. Because that's what you're telling us you want. Own it. Step up. I don't have any such illusions, my friend. I don't puff my own pecker about what a badass I am and how much I look forward to a civil freaking war. I have gone on at length about this. I'll tell you point blank to your face. The last thing I want to see is Americans spilling blood of other Americans. But if that's your narrative, Sparky, that's the story you're running with, and that's why you're telling other people not to participate, I better see your ass in the street. Walk it like you talk it, punk. Oh, we're all cowards because we're not putting on our Hawaiian shirts and praying for civil war. Son, you won't even move out of California. Who the hell are you? Some of us are out here trying to head this off. This may be the last chance we have to take a ballot instead of a bullet. And you're going to take that away because you're a coward? Get bent. These are the prospects going into November. And you know why it doesn't matter? It might matter to you. Oh, look at that. Great minds. It might matter to you. But I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to put the word out. I'm going to throw my ballot. I'm going to do everything that I can to put everything into the mix, to do what I can to affect things. And then it's in the boss's hands. I'm no longer going to spin myself up. What comes is what comes. We already know what we get with a Harris Waltz ticket. We already know what communism is. We've already lived through it. I will not let it affect my life. I have one simple word, and that word is no. Turn in your guns. No. Submit to a work detail. No. Stop speaking your mind. No. My Christian friends who are out there, y'all don't know what persecution is yet. You need to read a book that my brother in Christ, Bill Wade, gave to me a long time ago. Live Not by Lies, a Rod Dreher. You need to read that. We're not persecuted yet, but it's coming. I hope y'all get ready for it. But the one book you need to be reading right now is the one book you need to be reading. You better get your face in some scripture, son. The world is going to do whatever the hell it's going to do. And if they pull off a steal again, well, then you guys get the satisfaction of not having to hear me ever tell you to vote again. Beautiful. And I'll stand right there with you. But it's not a matter of what we know, it's a matter of what we do, right? We know they're going to try to steal it. We got to do what we can anyway. We know that that was a hit on Trump, and we know the regime authorized it. We got to keep going on like we got to keep going on anyway. We know that given their druthers, your Karen-ass neighbors, your Stasi-Karen neighbors would have your ass put in the gulag. We got to keep doing what we're going to do anyway. And as Christians, we are commanded 365 times in the word verbatim, do not be afraid. I have concerns because a lot of people are not as well prepared as I am. A lot of people do not have the same strength and resiliency that I do. And a lot of people who are very close to me right now have outlived their usefulness or come damn close to it. And they're going to have to go very soon. A lot of how they react to what goes on in November is going to have everything to do with that. And if you're rolling it around in your head that you might be one of those people, you probably are. So you better check yourself, or go ahead and save us both the trouble and walk. Either way, I'm good because I serve a larger purpose and I serve a higher power. Boss man already laid this out for me, man. I will not falter in the face of people challenging my faith. I will not falter in the face of people challenging Western civilization. I will not falter in the face of people challenging the relevancy and the strength and the promise of the United States of America that was bequeathed to us by our founders. I will not falter. So you do with that whatever the hell you have to. You rationalize that however the hell you have to. For the Neil Rosses of the world, wanting to pull that Eeyore bullshit, probably just fall off again anyway. Cool. That's what you need to get through. But you stay the hell off with that poisonous cowardice. You stay the hell away from me and mine with that, because we don't have time for it. We're actually in this fight, as opposed to sitting back talking. And I'm going to say this too. I haven't been active enough in a physical way. I haven't been physically active in the streets with any kind of demonstration or any kind of being on the front line since I was much, much younger and completely on the other side of the political spectrum. But I'm up here in the Northwest. And there's some boys from an organization called Patriot Prayer that are doing big things in Portland, that are doing big things in Seattle, that may be doing some big things right here in Spokane. And so I'm doing what I can on that front, and you may see me right up there on the front line again sooner than later. Because even my old crippled ass has still got a little bit of fight left in me, and I'm looking at the enormity of what's actually going on in the world. And you know what? I miss being on the front. So for all you maggots on the other side, like I said, I will see you across the barricades. Time for talk is done. Time for compromise is certainly done. Time for hiding and going along to get along and agreeing to disagree. That's all done. It's all done, man. I don't have room for it, neither should you. Put your face in some scripture. Give your heart to God and put your hands on a freaking bag or some iron and do some work. It's already here, boys and girls. No longer a dystopian fiction novel. It is our day-to-day reality. And the sooner we get our heads around that, we're fine. But enough of the black pills and enough of the negativity. I look forward to it. I look forward to it, and I literally don't care how it turns out. Camel Toe and her little horse blowing buddy pull off a steal in November, and we wind up going full bore communist. Okay. I've already prepared for that in my head, man. I hope that we can avoid violence. But a famous man once said, I do not go out looking for violence, but if someone visits it upon my house, the bringer will find me at home. That's where I'm at. All you people like my birth mother, judge not lest ye be judged. What about the hippie Jesus? That's your cowardice talking. That's your cowardice talking. And I'm going to break that down for a lot of y'all Christians out there too. Some of you weak sisters out there want to focus only on the hippie Jesus. You forget about that table flipping Jesus. You forget about that bundle of reeds whipping the moneylenders Jesus. And you forget about the boss man scour 2 cities off the face of the earth and turn one of my servants' wives into a pillar of salt for disobeying me. Y'all forgot about that one. I serve a powerful God. I serve a powerful God. And his son volunteered to be scourged, tortured, and murdered on a cross to buy my redemption. That ain't no punk. So if you're looking for me to be some milquetoast Christian or put my energy behind some of you milquetoast Christians and some of you tolerant churches with your BLM and your rainbow flags in front of your congregation, telling everybody forgive and forget, we're in no place to judge, that there is no such thing as righteous anger, you can miss me with that. Because I'm going to see your ass across the barricades too, son. Yes, sir. And if I'm wrong, I'll settle it up with the carpenter when I get there. But right now, it's me and you are not going to like the way this ends. Ain't no fear. No fear, no apprehension. God's got me. You want to get bent out of shape? Go ahead. You want to confront me? Right. Thank you, George. By the way, I'm glad you're here. I don't know how I missed you earlier. You think you're man enough to confront me? You think you're man enough? You think your religion, your state, right? For all you jihad Johnnies out there, man, you think Muhammad's going to be the one to save you? Bring it. Bring it. I'll give you a little history lesson. I'll reenact. I'll reenact retaking Jerusalem right on the top of your pointy little head, son. Step aside, Haji. You think you're man enough? Bring it. For all of you people like we were talking about earlier, who don't align yourself with the deceiver, you just reject all religion and therefore you're totally secular and totally based on reason and everything. Your religion is the state. Your religion is the expert class. Your religion is the ontological evil of science and medicine, like we were just talking about. And if you think that is what's going to back me down off this high ground, bring it. I serve a powerful God, son. I don't fear anything you have to bring to me. Slings and arrows, pistols and rifles, stabbers and snubbers. My boy Tom. Least of all your ridicule. Least of all your ridicule. I don't need your approval or validation. I got the boss man and the carpenter, and I've got a tight circle. Jack with that at your own peril, son. May God be with you when you do. I'm just there to arrange the meeting. I'm going to close with a prayer, man. I'm going to get up out of here before I tear off into another rant, man. But I appreciate y'all being here. This didn't roll at all like I'd planned on. You know, I kind of had like a little map in my head of the way that I wanted it to go, and it kind of got sideways. But I've been out for 4 weeks, man. What do you want? I'm just glad you guys stuck around. I'm glad you guys are patient with me during my absence. But I'll tell you the truth, man. Carpenter, basically, I was raising up, and I wanted to say something right after Trump got shot, and it was like, no, no, no. Because I'm trying to live up to what I'm constantly reinforcing with you guys about living the three. I had nothing to bring at that point but noise. Nothing to bring but noise. And until I could come with some signal, I just sit back and keep my mouth shut. Carpenter did that to me right after I came back to the faith. Carpenter did that to me right after I came back to the faith. I came off of that weekend, off that week with Sonny, and got dropped in a place where I was working 7/12s, and I didn't have it because I wasn't supposed to be talking. I was supposed to be listening. I was supposed to be processing. I was supposed to be getting my head right. Carpenter said, shut up. Shut your mouth. This is not your show. Tell them you came home and then sit down and shut up. And listen to what I got to say to you. And I'm trying to spend more time with that right now. And I appreciate y'all's patience in the interim. I'm going to close with a prayer real quick. Lord God, I'm thankful for every man, woman, and child in my circle. I am thankful for the gifts that you've given me. I'm thankful for every adversity and every trial that sharpens me, strengthens my gift. I thank you for this calling. I thank you for this responsibility. I thank you for every breath. I thank you for this peace that I have learned and experienced since my return to the faith. I thank you for the strength that inspires that peace, for knowing that no matter what is your divine plan, thy will, not mine, be done. And I thank you for being able to, in some small way, reach out in the hopes that something that I say to someone might affect them in some small way, that'll bring some light and some strength into their life and keep them on a path. Because we struggle every day, Lord. We struggle and we stumble. So thank you for keeping me walking right. Thank you for keeping me in the Word. Thank you for allowing me to be a voice for your will and your word in this world, Lord. Strength for the fight ahead. Let me bring your children home and assemble your army. We're here for it, Lord, no matter what. You have admonished us not to be afraid, so let us go forward and live fearlessly in the light of your truth and the light of the risen Christ, whom we ever serve. Amen. Love y'all, man. Love y'all. That's all I can tell you. You guys want to toss something? I'm here. I'm Facebook Pay, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, whatever. Yada yada yada. It's there. It's there. You guys want to toss me some coin? I'm going to take a week or so, and I'm going to do some things around the house. There's some things that I need to take care of, and I'm going to knock that out. And then I'm going to get back to work. And I'm actually. No, you know what? I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna spoil anything. I love y'all, man. Thank you. God bless each and every one of you. Gonna go ahead and throw out that outro music. A little bit of Clutch, Neil Fallon, Fortunate Son. Coolest cover of this song that's ever been done, by the way, man. I appreciate y'all. If you can throw me something that's cool, but I understand we're still in a Harris economy. I can't even say Biden economy anymore. We're in a Harris economy for another couple of months. And so I get it. Here's what you can do, man. You can repost on your particular social media platform, whatever you got going on. Repost on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Say, hey, man, fat, toothless, crippled, crane operator with some opinions. Gets a rants and raves every Sunday for a couple hours. Maybe you'll find it to your liking. For all my sinner sisters, my prophets of doom, my reverence rangers out there, I love you guys. Here's what you can do, not for me, but for yourselves as well. Like the Mighty Mighty Stone says, live the three, baby. What are the three? Three prime directives. Three prime directives, rules to live by, man. Number one, you've got to be that signal in a world full of noise. Try to bury you with the noise. You've got to be that signal that punches through the noise. You got to be the light in a world full of darkness. They will bury you in the darkness. They will try to demoralize you, dehumanize you, emasculate you, convince you that there is nothing existing out there but the darkness. You have got to be that light. Not only be the light, but you've got to have the strength to carry the light, which leads us to the iron rule. The third and most important rule, the iron rule, the prime directive. You have got to be strength in a world full of weakness. And I'm not just talking about this kind of strength and this kind of, I'm talking about here and here, sometimes even here, man. Why strength first? Because without strength, none of the other stuff matters. If you don't have strength, you're not going to have the tenacity and the power to push that signal through the noise. If you don't have strength, you're not going to have the endurance and the fortitude to carry that light and punch it through the darkness. So strength above all, man. And when you pray, strength, clarity, and discernment is what you pray for in that order. Strength, clarity, and discernment. So they're going to try to bury you, man. Fight's already on, but I don't worry about it. Boss man's got the plan. Carpenter's got my back. I fear no man and no thing. Bring what you got, baby. I'm not alone out here. I got a whole circle, and I see every one of y'all out there. I love y'all. Thank you so much. Appreciate y'all being here. God bless y'all. Each and every one. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Hopefully, we'll see you next Sunday. God willing. Love y'all, man. Peace. Take care, man. Thank you. Love y'all.